what's going on? It's your girl T.I.E here, which stands for Together Individual Entertainment. Okay, so before I get into what I'm going to do today on my YouTube page, I want to let you guys know something. As you know, we are exactly 6 days away from Halloween, and that's a big concern. So if your city did not cancel trick-or-treating and you're still taking your kids out, you should listen to my podcast episode of Halloween Safety. Just look up my past episodes. There you'll see Halloween safety tips and everything. Trust me, I talk about costumes, the time, eating. Make sure you do light. Believe me, you need to know a lot of things about safety and stuff to be reminded, because who knows, maybe there's going to be a lot of things that you did not know about or probably forgotten, but still, this is serious. If there's a city that did not cancel trick-or-treating, you have to look up my safety tip, and it's going to be on anchor.fm/T.I.E. It's still called T.I.E Blog, so check it out on anchor.fm, okay? So, I really do hope. Now, let's get into what I'm doing today on my YouTube page. Okay, so on my YouTube page, I'm going to be talking about the 31 Nights of Halloween movies that is showing on October 26th through the 31st, which is the last week of October. And then afterwards, we're going to get into 2 more stories for the Scary Disney Halloween book collection. So I really cannot wait to start reading those stories. But for now, let's get into what we're talking about. But before I get into 31 Nights of Halloween, I would like to let you guys know that you might have to set your DVR or whatever to recording mode, because most of the movies that your kid might want to watch will be on Halloween or whatever. But still, you should probably set something to record mode just in case, because who knows, maybe there's a movie that they like and it's on Halloween, but they can't see it because they'll be out trick-or-treating for 2 hours. But still, set your thing for recording mode, okay? So let's get into it. 31 Nights of Halloween, last week of October 26th through the 31st. So, kid movies. Hotel Transylvania 2 and 3, October 26th and 27th, along with Casper, October 26th and 27th. Nightmare Before Christmas, October 29th. Monsters, Inc. 1 and 2, October 28th. Twitches will not just be on October 26th, but it will also be on Halloween as well, October 31st, along with Halloween Town on Halloween. Halloween Town 1 and 2, that is. Teens, Corpse Bride, 26th and 28th. On October 29th is a triple feature for Beetlejuice and the old version of Ghostbusters 1 and 2, along with Beetlejuice October 30th. For adults, Sleepy Hollow October 29th, and for October 30th, triple feature again for Sleepy Hollow, Addams Family 1 and 2, and then Addams Family 1 and 2 for October 31st. That's on Halloween. Alright, so now that we talked about those movies that is coming on this last week of October, I think it's time to get into our 2 stories of today's video. And the first story that we're going to be doing for our Disney book today is, let me see here. Oh, where did that one? Here we go. It's going to be Brave. Yep, Merida's Wild Ride. And this is going to be, an amazing thing. So I really cannot wait to start reading this, because after all, we all know the legend of Sleepy Hollow, but I don't think there's no Headless Horseman in this one. Instead, let's see what Merida's up to with this horse. It was a soggy and stormy afternoon. Merida sat in the stables reading from an old book of Highland Tales. She said her horse, Agnes, wanted to go for a ride if only the weather would clear up. Look at this picture of a brownie, Merida said. The book says they're little goblins who mischief unless you keep them well fed. Sounds like my brothers. Angus snorted, shaking his head. It was clear that he wanted nothing to do with the magical creatures, especially after their last encounter, even though Merida had been able to transform her mum back from a bear to a human. Merida had learned that the magic was not to be taken lightly. Merida read on until the raindrops slowed and the clouds began to scatter. "Come, lad," said Merida to Angus. "The sun's breaking through. Let's go for a ride." They galloped across the bridge and down the hill, but just as they reached the woods, Merida saw a flash of gray dart through the trees. "What was that?" she cried. Angus didn't want to follow it. Whatever it was, "Don't be such a ninny," Merida chimed him. "I'm sure it's not a bear." "But what was it?" Merida guided Angus into the woods, keeping her eyes open another glimpse of the creature. As they rode, Merida kept catching flashes of the animal. She urged Angus to go faster until they broke through the trees and into a clearing. There stood a magnificent gray horse, its coat shimmering. The mane was like fine silk. Breathless with excitement, Merida whispered to Angus, "He's beautiful." Merida dismounted and approached the horse with a gentle smile. "Come here, I won't hurt you." Suddenly, Angus blocked Merida's path. "Angus!" she called. "Don't be jealous, lad. This horse must be lost. When you need to help him, make sure he's safe." Merida chewed to the gray horse. It responded with a soft whinny. "Sing, Angus! He's friendly." Merida stroked the new horse's nose playfully. "Now, I'll ride him back to the castle, and you follow close behind, okay, Angus?" Merida had a spare bridle in Angus' pack, but she decided not to use it. She didn't want to spook the horse with her unfamiliar reins. Instead, Merida decided she could guide him with her hands wrapped in his mane. Angus gave a resigned snort as Merida swung up onto the gray horse's back, but as soon as she mounted him, the horse reared wildly. Merida tried to calm the horse, but he started running faster and faster. The strange horse galloped until the field was far behind them. Soon the trees began to thin, and Merida gasped with horror. They were racing toward the edge of the cliff. Merida tried everything she could get the horse to stop, but nothing worked. She realized the only choice was to leap from the horse's back, but when she moved to jump, her hands were stuck into the horse's mane. His hair was sticky or knotted, yet Merida could not free her hands. It was as if they were held there by magic. Merida tried to slide off the side of the horse, but nothing could free her hand from his mane. She thought she was out of options. Then suddenly, the runaway horse brushed against the trunk of the tree. Trapped rainwater fell down around Merida effortlessly. One of her hands came loose, but Merida's other hand was still stuck. Merida did the only thing she could think of. "Angus!" she cried. "Help!" Merida could only hope that her friends had heard her cry. Merida looked up at the sound of the whinny. Angus galloped up next to them, and he was carrying a spear bridle in his mouth. He must have pulled from the pack to help Merida. Angus tossed it through the air just as they were nearing the cliff's edge. Merida caught it with her free hand and slipped over the horse's head. As soon as the horse was bridled, Merida trapped the hand, came free with the reins, turned the horse away from the steep drop-off. Now that the horse was calmed down, Merida guided him to a safe path beside the sea. As they reached the shore, the horse finally slowed to stop. Grateful, Merida jumped off. The stallion stood quietly. Merida looked in his eyes for an answer about what had caused the wild ride. It was clear to her that this was no ordinary horse. It must have been a creature of magic. Merida moved the bridle and whispered quietly, "What are you?" But the horse did not reply. He simply moved his head softly as if he was nodding. Before galloping down the misty shoreline and into the water, Merida frowned as she watched him. As the horse raced deeper into the sea, she seemed to disappear into the fog. Merida mounted Angus and returned home. She was glad that the strange horse had not harmed her, but she wanted an explanation for her wild ride. Back at the stable, Meredith flipped through the book of Highland legends, looking for answers until she saw a picture of a very familiar horse. Look! She showed the book to Angus. It's a Kelpie. The book says, once the bridle is put on a Kelpie, the water horse will do your bidding. Angus snorted in disbelief. Don't worry, lad, Meredith said. I won't be riding another one anytime soon. You're the only horse for me. Angus nuzzled his head against Meredith's hand and as if to reply that she was the only girl for him. Well, that was Meredith's Wild Ride from the movie Brave. So the next one we're getting into is A Dark and Scary Night from the story, or should I say from the story and movie of The Lion King. So here's another adventure of what Simba might do to get Scar's up to something. Let's see. Scar sighed on watching the afternoon sun sink lower into the sky. Life wasn't fair. He should be ruling over Pride Lands, not his brother Mufasa. Oh, Scar, someone called in a sing-song. It was Mufasa's steward Zazu. I bring an important announcement from the king. And what, pray tell, does that Mufasa want? Scar asked the bird lazily, picking up something out of his claws. King Mufasa, Zazu said, correcting him, has decided it is time to prepare Simba for his future reign. He would like everyone to tell him tales of kings past. This evening, a family story time, as it were. Scar tensed. If there was anyone he hated more than Mufasa, it was his hairball of a nephew, Simba. If it weren't for him, Scar would be next in line for the throne. Sensing Scar's anger, Zazu made a quick exit. Story time begins promptly at sundown, he called. Scar leaped up growling. What could be worse than being forced to entertain his nephew with a bedtime story unless... Scar grinned as a positively wicked idea began to creep its way into his mind. Scar crept over to the elephant graveyard. If his plan were going to work, he would need the help of his vicious hyenas who lived there. So let me get this straight, Shenzi said. You want us to sneak into the lion's den and take the cub with Mufasa right there? Scar smiled. Leave Mufasa to me. He will be so distracted by my story, he won't even notice you. That doesn't seem like a most foolproof idea, Bonzi said. You want to eat, don't you? Scar roared. We do, Bonsai cried. We enjoy eating, Shanzi said, slapping a giggling Ed. Well, Scar said, once you steal the hairball away, you can have him. By the time Scar and the three hyenas reached the Pride Lands, night had fallen. Now remember, Scar growled, listen closely to my story. I will let you know when and how to strike. Before the hyenas could reply, they heard the sound of voices coming toward them. Go, Scar whispered, as he spotted Mufasa and Simba rounding the corner. Scar, Mufasa, Simba, and I were headed up to begin the storytelling. As was I, Scar replied quickly. I think I've got a very good tale to tell. So, Simba cocked his head. Is it scary? I want to hear something really scary, not some boring story about an old king. Scar knelt down, an evil glint in his eye. The scariest cool, Simba cried. Soon, the lions had gathered and Simba's friend Nala sat beside him, across from them. Mufasa greeted the pride. Who would like to begin? Mufasa asked. I would be honored to, Zazu started. I'll go first, Scar interrupted, stepping forward. Mufasa looked at his brother, surprised. He said he had a really scary story. Simba whispered to Nala, Very well, Mufasa said. Scar, the floor is yours. Scar took a deep breath and began. Once upon a time, there lived a foolish king with many enemies. Scar glared down at Simba, who was hanging on his every word. One night, the king decided to host a gathering. He invited animals from far and wide. This pleased the king's enemies. They knew the king would be distracted by his guests. This was their chance. The king's enemies invited some mighty elephants to gather. The elephants' feet were so large that they kicked up a large amount of dirt. Scar scraped his large paws on the ground, creating a cloud of dust, which made it difficult for the king and his subjects to see. It was the perfect opportunity to take the king without anyone noticing. Hearing the cue, the hyenas snuck toward the distracted lions, who were squinting a Scar through the haze. They had almost reached Simba when, "Achoo!" Simba sneezed and diverted everyone's attention to him. The hyena sprinted out and sight. "Perhaps that's enough dust, Scar," Mufasa advised. "Of course," Scar drawled, his eyes darkening. Unfortunately, things did not go as planned. Scar continued, but no matter, the king's enemies soon came up with another plan. One night, when everyone was fast asleep, they snuck into the king's den, covered in mud. They were well disguised to blend in with surrounding rocks. When the king woke up, he did not know that his enemies were there with him. He raised his voice pointedly, right there with him, disguised. "Is everything all right?" Zazu asked. "Of course," Scar snapped. He took a deep breath, continuing his story, as well as the hyenas, looking as though they had rolled around in the dirt and dust, inched toward Simba in their stomachs. Suddenly, Mufasa stood up. The hyenas gasped sight of my lions and made another hasty retreat. Frowning, the king peered through the darkness. Thought I heard something." He sat down again. "I apologize, Scar." "Yes, well," Scar went on, clearly agitated. The enemy's second idea to sabotage the king did not work either, so they had to resort to their third and final plan. Each day the king stood on a great rock very similar to the one and made announcements to his subjects. "This is a very odd story," Zazu muttered, and so his enemies gathered at the base of the rock. Scar continued, ignoring the bird. They climbed up one another until they reached a great height, until the enemy at the top was just high enough to reach the king's paws. And then Scar paused as the hyenas climbed up to reach the space just beneath Simba. "They pounced on the king," Scar bellowed. The lions were startled, but Scar's outcry had also scared the hyenas. The three hyenas tumbled down the face of Pride Rock. Out of the corner of his eye, Scar saw the dazed and bruised hyenas shuffle back toward the elephant graveyard. He sighed. "What happened next?" Simba asked. "Then the king swatted the enemies away," Scar said. "The end." Simba looked disappointed. "Uncle Scar," he said, "that was a nice story, but maybe next time you can make it scarier." Well, I hope you enjoyed those two stories, because the next one we're going to get into sometime this week is Power Edge from the movie Wreck-It Ralph. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed those stories. I know I did. So, remember to always have fun things to do during this last week of Halloween.